How to be happy in any situation. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled at the base of rolling hills, there lived a farmer named Jack. Jack's life was simple. He grew corn, raised a few chickens, and lived in a modest wooden house that had been in his family for generations. He wasn't rich, but he was content. One year, everything changed. A terrible drought swept through the town. The skies turned an unrelenting blue, the fields cracked under the scorching sun, and Jack's once thriving cornfield withered into dust. The townsfolk whispered about Jack's misfortune. "Poor Jack," they said, shaking their heads. "He's lost everything. What will he do now?" To their surprise, Jack didn't seem distraught. He still walked through the town square with a warm smile and a friendly wave, as if the drought hadn't touched him at all. One day, a young man named Luke, who often helped Jack with odd jobs, couldn't hold back his curiosity. "Jack," he said, "I don't understand. The drought has ruined your crops. You've got nothing left to sell, and yet you're still smiling. How can you be happy at a time like this?" Jack leaned against his weathered fence, scratched his beard, and said, "Let me tell you a story, Luke. It's one my father told me when I was about your age." Luke, intrigued, sat down on a nearby barrel. Jack began, "There was once a traveler passing through our town, carrying a massive sack on his back. He looked tired, worn out, like he hadn't slept in days. I stopped him and asked, 'What's in the sack?' 'All my troubles,' the traveler replied. Feeling sorry for him, I offered to carry it for a while. But when I lifted the sack, I realized it wasn't heavy at all. It was practically empty. I handed it back to him and said, 'Your troubles aren't heavy, friend. You're just holding on to them too tightly.'" Luke chuckled, but Jack wasn't done. "Life is full of troubles, Luke. The drought is one of mine. But I've learned something over the years. Happiness doesn't come from avoiding problems. It comes from choosing what to focus on. Sure, the corn is gone this year, but the sky is still beautiful. The chickens still cluck, and I've still got neighbors who care enough to ask me questions like you just did." Luke frowned. "But doesn't it bother you, losing all your crops?" Jack nodded. "Of course it does. I'm not immune to frustration or sadness. But here's the thing. What's the point of holding on to that? Feeling miserable won't make the rain come any faster. So instead of focusing on what's gone, I focus on what's still here." The words stayed with Luke long after he left Jack's farm. That night, as he lay in bed, he thought about the sack of troubles. How often had he carried his own, convinced they were unbearable, when in reality, it was his grip that made them feel heavy. The next morning, Luke stopped by Jack's farm again. He found Jack repairing an old wheelbarrow. "I thought about what you said," Luke said, "and you're right. My dad's been sick lately, and it's been all I can think about. But instead of spending time with him, I've been so focused on worrying that I've barely been there for him." Jack smiled. "Now you're getting it, Luke. Worrying is like rocking in a chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere." The drought eventually ended, and the fields turned green again. But the story of Jack and his wisdom spread far beyond the town. People started asking themselves, "How tightly am I holding my sack of troubles?" And slowly, the town changed. So, the next time life feels overwhelming, think of Jack's story. You might not be able to change your circumstances, but you can always choose how you carry them, because happiness isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about making the most of every moment, no matter what. And that's the secret.